Hello, football family, and welcome in to Huddle It Up Films. This is the NFL prediction show. Got two gentlemen with me who know the NFL better than anybody. Want to give a chance to introduce themselves first. The man in the middle, to my left, which is that way, Mr. Daryl Knox. Knox, how you doing, and where can people find you?
Hey, how do I? I'm doing good, Jason. They can find me at Ravens Elite at Ravens Elite. Of course, Knox. Me and Jamil have our own podcast, Ravens Elite podcast as well. That's posted in the link under my Twitter handle. So you guys can tap in with that. I appreciate you for inviting me on, and appreciate to be on here with you talented gentlemen as well. So appreciate it.
Love it. Dev Panchwal is joining us as well. Dev, same question. Where can people find you? And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Dev Panchwa. You hear too much from me sometimes on Twitter. It's at Dev Panchwa. Russell Street Report as well. Right now, I don't have anything in play, but I do have an article pinned to my profile if you want to check it out about the pass rush and my theory that the Ravens are going to be in better shape this year than they were last year. So that's one of my most recent articles. But otherwise, I'm here with you guys, and I can't wait to talk about the season.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I picked the perfect people for this. Dev, NFL historian. Every time I talk to him, I learn something new. And Mr. Knox over there with his new podcast comes out on Mondays. Excellent listen for Ravens fans. And for any of you divisional fans, divisional opponents, you want to catch up on the Ravens, it's a great chance to do so. So we'll jump right into it with the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills, the reigning champions of that division. And I'm going to kick it to Knox first. Knox, we'll put your predictions up on the screen. And I want you to tell me what you like about the Bills, why you have them at 14 wins. And also, could you please touch on the Miami Dolphins for us?
Oh, yeah. So, the AFC East, I got the Buffalo Bills going 14-3. They made a lot of good additions. You look at who they have in the secondary: Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. You still got Tremaine Edmonds. Re-sign Matt Milano. So when you bring in a guy like Matt Milano, they're 12-0 with Matt Milano. So that already speaks to, how they feel about bringing him back and, the intricate part that he plays on his team. I definitely feel like they also got better on the offensive side of the ball. You bring in a guy like Emmanuel Sanders. They drafted you got the second-year guy in Gabriel Davis from UCF, who's been coming on strong. He's been making his mark, and you got Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley. The list goes on. Where you got guys that can produce, and you've seen. Josh Allen. His completion percentage as far as target rating, it was at 53% and went up at 69% last year. And you can attribute that to Stephon Diggs. When getting a number one guy, the same thing that Ravens fans have been preaching for Lamar, that finally get that number one target, and you would hope that bodes well for this team as well. So I just think both sides of the ball, they got better. They got better. This front office definitely established, a Super Bowl. I say Super Bowl aspirations for Josh Allen and the rest of this team. They also got better with Matt Breida, establishing the running game, along with motivating guys like Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. So I think they've done everything that they could possibly do. And, of course, you bring in Gregory Rousseau, AJ Espinosa, guys that, definitely have a lot to prove and a lot of potential, though, for sure.
And how about those Dolphins, Knox? You have them at 10-7, winning season. What can you tell us about Miami that you like?
Yeah, I think what I like about Miami is that, you got a guy in Brian Flores who is, I think he's definitely a player's coach. You can tell, guys love playing for him. They finished last year 10-6. Unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs, but they were along the stretch, they were winning a lot of games. A lot of games to put themselves at least in the conversation. And, if they can somehow, some way, the NFL gods let Deshaun Watson go over there, who knows what can happen to those predictions. They could get significantly increased. They drafted a guy in Jalen Phillips. I like him. I like his potential. Hopefully, as he can steer clear of the injuries. You got a guy in Jalen Waddle, who you drafted. We already know how those Alabama wide receivers go. So, that's amazing right there. You sign a guy in Will Fuller. You still got Jakeem Grant, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. So they have a nice offense, and I definitely think that they can put together some wins and at least get 10 wins. I think for sure. At
Yeah,
least
love the head coach, Knox. Love the head coach. I like the
yeah,
offseason additions. A lot to like about that Dolphins team. I think for most of us, the quarterback position is the biggest question, and we're recording
hmm
this on August 31st, so who knows what kind of
right.
acquisition if they do pick up Watson. But I'm going to focus on the New England Patriots in this division. I'm actually the highest on them at 11 wins. And I think, my basic point is if they were a middle of the pack team last year with the opt outs that they had and with the issues that they had at quarterback, with Cam not having his best season, you can look at the touchdown to interception ratio yourself. Now they have Mac Jones in there who seems to fit seamlessly into their system, but all the additions on defense, I think this is going to be one of the top defenses in the NFL. So if they could be a middle of the pack team last year with what they had, I don't see how they're getting any fewer than 11 wins, even with the Bills and the Dolphins in their division. And again, it's a system-based offense, I believe. A Bill Belichick team is always going to be well coached, good offense, good defense. So that turns us to the New York Jets. Dev is actually highest on the Jets out of the group. He has them at 7-10. The Jets are not getting a lot of national love, but Dev, why do you like the Jets? Why do you think that they could hit 7 wins or maybe even exceed that and exceed expectations nationwide?
Yeah, I promise I'm not doing this for my wife and her family. We're big Jets fans in New York. So, it's interesting. I think Robert Saleh is going to really add a lot to this team. And they go from Adam Gase to Robert Saleh. It's like the
Right.
most incredible. It reminds me of like Harbaugh coming on, and maybe not, to take a knock at Billick. I think there
Right.
wasn't as much of a drastic change, but there's going to be a cultural change.
Yeah.
And I think the Jets actually hung in some games last year. At the end of the year, they kept fighting. They blew that game against the Raiders, which we saw at the end. But that was going to be a game that they were winning, so
Right.
they were competing at the end of the year. I think if you look at this team too, they're sneaky front, and I like the offensive front. So if you have good fronts, if you play well in the trenches, I think that's also something that they could probably hang their hat on. So I do think they're gonna play better. I think they're gonna have their lumps as a young team, but I like the talent that they're assembling.
What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson? I wanted to get very, very quickly from you.
Yeah, I don't know what to 100% expect from Zach Wilson. I think he's gonna be kind of a gunslinger, but I don't know. I mean, the problem that held him back, and I'm not a big Darnold believer. I think he's a turnover-prone guy, and I don't think that's because he was only with the Jets. I mean, if you look back to his history at USC, I think he was also turning the ball over there. So I think in that respect, Wilson, I think might not be as much of a turnover-prone guy. And if he can not do that, I mean, he's got some weapons. If you look at those receivers, they got some weapons.
Yeah,
So I think I like him to win a few games on his own, actually. But I could also see him losing a couple games.
There we go. With that, we're
Yeah.
going to kick it to the AFC North, one of the better divisions in football. You guys may have noticed that each of us covered the Ravens as well. So it's a team that we know inside and out, and each of us could talk about in depth. I'm going to take it from the top, though, with the Ravens. I have them at 13 wins, 13-4. I just think that overall it's a solid roster, top to bottom, offense, defense, and then one thing that non-Ravens fans might not understand as well is the depth on this team. It's gotten a lot of attention recently for the pregame winning streak, which is spanned across 20 games. And a lot of fans get the wrong idea that, Harbaugh's playing his starters into the third quarter and, we're trying to do all these things. That is not the case with the Baltimore Ravens. They play their starters maybe even less than most teams. They'll play them a few snaps every game, a series or two. It's a credit to the depth on this team. So NFL is such a physical sport. Every team gets hit with injuries, and the Ravens are more than capable to handle that. So even with the tough division, all of us are high on the Ravens. And I also want to touch on the Pittsburgh Steelers, longtime rivals. Now, with this team last year, they had kind of an identity crisis with running the ball, passing the ball too much. And we saw an older quarterback in Big Ben Roethlisberger forced to throw it more times than I think Steelers fans would like, and maybe even Coach Tomlin, who I have a lot of respect for as well, is like. So what did they do in the draft? They draft Najee Harris. They draft Pat Freiermuth. I think both of those guys will help in the run game as well as the pass game. So you're going to have a more diverse offense. I think last year the Pittsburgh Steelers were forced with all these quick throws and to become very one-dimensional. And it took an 11-0 team and really kind of took their season down the drain. So I expect a rebound from the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And I think that they're always going to be there. I mean, they've had how many consecutive winning seasons? I haven't had a losing season in however long.
Right.
So I'm not writing the Steelers off as a sub-500 team. I have them at 9-8. So I want to kick it to Knox on this one. Back to Knox, and talk to us about the Cleveland Browns. You have them at 12-5. What do you like about the Cleveland Browns, and how could you see their season go? Do you think 12 wins is a pretty solid prediction, or could you see more or less? Talk about the Browns for us.
Yeah, I think the Browns, they've definitely carved out one of the best rosters in the NFL. I think they're at least number one or number two as far as starters go. I mean, you got two of the best running backs in the game, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. You got two of the arguably the best tight ends in the game, and David Njoku, Austin Hooper. Two of the best wide receivers in the game when you got Odell and Jarvis Landry. And then you get Jadeveon Clowney to pair with Myles Garrett. So I think they've definitely carved out a niche for him, especially back on speaking on the defense. I mean, you bring in a guy like Troy Hill, you bring in a guy like John Johnson, to go alongside Denzel Ward. You pray that Grant Delpit can be healthy. You pray that Greedy Williams can be healthy. I know he had a groin injury in that game Sunday, so hopefully he's well with that. But I think 12 wins is solid. The only problem is with, like Dev was speaking about Sam Darnold, the same thing with Baker Mayfield. We know that he tends to turn over the ball, and the consistency can sometimes it's not shown. Kevin Stefanski, he's had it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. I mean, Freddie Kitchens and the list goes on, but we hope that when you have two powerful backs like that, that'll take the pressure off. They'll win a lot of games predicated on both of those running backs. And the biggest thing for this team is just health. Guys just staying healthy. I mean, with Odell coming back from injury, Grant Delpit coming back from injury, like we talked about, Jadeveon Clowney, we know his injury history. Other than that, I definitely see this team being 12-5. I think the front office has definitely did their due diligence when it came down to building around this team and making this team great.
So, Dev, that leaves us with the Cincinnati Bengals, a young team. You would say an up-and-coming quarterback. There's not a lot of Joe Burrow doubters out there. I think he's going to be just fine, if not a very good to great quarterback in this league. We saw him handle that last year. You have him at 8-9, which is a little bit above of what Vegas has them. What do you like about the Cincinnati Bengals, and why could they surprise in this division?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that I liked out of the way they played last year. And to your point, I mean, Burrow, showed himself really well. I'm a Burrow guy. I think, he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks, young up-and-coming quarterbacks in the league for years to come. I think foundationally, they've surrounded him with a lot of firepower. I think Joe Mixon has a bigger season this year. I think not having Gio Bernard take some of the snaps, I think he's gonna come in and really take control of that position. And defensively, they're really interesting because I really like their scheme, their coaching, what they do. I don't necessarily know from a talent point of view that they have defensively the same caliber of talent some of the top defenses in the league, but I feel like they get a lot out of it. They're pretty complex. And their secondary is very good and underrated, I think. So that's the other thing when you talk about those guys in the secondary, like some of the guys that they have back on the back end. So that being the case, I think they're going to be scrappy, and I think they're going to be in it. And I think you brought up the Steelers earlier, who I'm more down on, but I think that could be an area where I feel like the Bengals and the Steelers, there could be a difference of a few games, and the Bengals could win a few of those games.
Yeah, the Bengals matched up pretty well with the Steelers and actually beat them with Brandon Allen, I believe, a quarterback last year. So Bengals tough out.
Yeah.
You never know. There's division games, and yeah, there should be some optimism, I think, in Cincinnati around Joe Burrow if they can just protect him, which is obviously the narrative nationally. Taking Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell or any of the other offensive linemen. So we'll see what happens there in Cincinnati. Moving to the AFC South. The team that Knox likes a lot is the Tennessee Titans. He has them at 13 wins. So Knox, go ahead, take it away on the Titans there.
I mean, the first biggest news is, I mean, who doesn't want a Julio Jones on their team? I mean, who like automatically the win percentage right there is just all right. We got Julio Jones, like, so that, of course. Besides that, I mean, you still got Derrick Henry, you got AJ Brown. I mean, that offense is almost indefensible, in my opinion. I mean, if you try to load the box with Derrick Henry, either one of those guys can stretch you and burn you right down the field. I mean, you got a deep threat in Julio Jones, a possession wide receiver as well, and the same thing with AJ Brown. I mean, it's the, pick your poison. Also, the biggest thing that we did see, they did lose some veteran leadership in Kenny Vaccaro, Malcolm Butler, Dory Jackson in that secondary. You still have Kevin Byard, which is a good sign. You still have Amani Hooker, which is also still a good sign. It shows some promise. They went out and drafted Caleb Farley. They got Elijah Molin. You signed a veteran journeyman like Janoris Jenkins. So you pray that Christian Fulton can come back and be whoever they who they envision him that he could be in the secondary. So yeah, I see a lot of promise. They also got Bud Dupree. Another, we were talking about the Steelers earlier. That was a big part of that pass rush besides TJ Watt. So you still that, this was a team that struggled to get sacks last year. I mean, even with Jadeveon Clowney and everybody else for those whatever games that he played, but they still, and then you bring in a guy like Danico Autry, who had a great stint with the Colts. A great stint with the Colts. I love that Danico Autry move as well. I think they drafted Rashad Weaver from Pitt. So I think they definitely they definitely have a chance to beat that. And I mean, you're looking at the division. I mean, they have Jacksonville, who, I don't know their identity right now. The Colts, who, they've been dealing with an up and down offseason, and you got the Texans, which we know. I don't know if any too much promise is there. They're dealing with their own issues, and again, I don't know their identity. So if you look at it, it's a pretty clear cut division to me as a coach.
So Dev, I'm going to give you two teams here. That's those Indianapolis Colts that Knox was just talking about, and also the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now you have the Colts at 9 wins, the Jags at 7. Could you touch on those two teams, please, and tell me what you like about them and why those fans should be optimistic?
Yeah, so the Colts are I feel like they have a wide range of outcomes with what their schedule looks like to start the season. No Wentz, we believe could be available for week 1, maybe not. Decent chance he's not. I feel like Quentin Nelson is also a question mark, right? So they have a bunch of guys that are hurt. T.Y. Hilton, he's going to be on ice for a while. It's a bad mix. But then defensively, they're so good still. Like, their defense is one of the best in the league. That front, led by Buckner. They drafted Kwity Paye. They drafted a couple of guys for this draft to add to that group with Leonard and Buckner and a bunch of household names, right? So that front seven is really good. I feel like they'll still be a very difficult team, and they're well coached. Like Frank Reich, that staff. You can't. I don't think when it comes to strategy and X's and O's, there's only so many teams that are going to be able to outcoach them. So I think that they have those kind of classic elements, right? Defense, run game. When the line is going to be healthy, I think they'll be in good shape. But yeah, I think still, like, I have them at 9-8, so that could be an outside of the playoffs looking in type of situation. with the Jaguars, I think it all comes down to Lawrence and what your belief is in Lawrence, right? So I mean, I'm a believer in Lawrence. I do think in the combination with him and Meyer, I think they have some talent on offense as well. I know ETN is hurt, and I think that's a bit of a blow for them. But yeah, I think it comes down to Lawrence and that combination of Meyer. I think is going to actually surprise some people. But I think, and especially this division, to Knox's point, I mean, it's kind of a weak division all around. Once you take the Titans out. Yeah. So it's like they're winning. They're almost like winning by default. Some of these games,
right.
I mean,
pretty much.
But somebody has to win like 6 or 7 games. So I think Jacksonville could do that. And I like the receiving core quite a bit. Like Chark, I think you look at Chark. They brought in Marvin Jones, and then Chenault is a guy that I like a lot. So I think they got some firepower. They could make it interesting.
Yeah, me too. I like the way those receivers complement each other, especially. It's different styles. You got a yak guy in Laviska Shenault, who I liked a lot. They found a way to use him right away in his rookie season, which I think is a good sign. And then, like you said, the division itself is up for grabs. But that being said, none of us really have the Houston Texans with many wins in this division. I have them at 3 wins, and it's hard to find wins for a team where you don't feel like they have a strength in any one aspect of their team. And I'm not even talking about offense or defense. I'm talking about specific position groups, offensive line, receivers, running backs, defensive line, linebackers, corners, safeties, even to a first-year head coach in David Culley. There's not one thing in that organization that you can hold on to and say, this is going to be a strength when they play almost any other team. This group is going to be at the top of the group. So for that reason, it's tough times for Texans fans, obviously, with the Deshaun Watson situation. You never know what happens when you roll the ball out there on Sunday and kick it off. But it's mainly a positive show here. We're trying to highlight the positives and how these the seasons can go their way. But for the Houston Texans, I don't have a lot of positives to say. I'm sorry to Texans fans. Things will get better. It has been a pretty good organization since they've come into the league. It seems like that division always comes down tooth and nail. So we'll see what I consider this a bridge season for the Houston Texans. Hopefully they can build on it and start building for the future. Because ever since the DeAndre Hopkins trade, it seems like it's been heading to rock bottom, and maybe this will be their rock bottom and they can head straight up from here. I wanted to move on to the AFC West. I'm going to start this off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Quite the different story from the Texans. You're talking about a team that has made the Super Bowl the last 2 seasons. They are favorites to do so again this year. And there's really not much to say on Kansas City. I mean, we're all very high on them, 14, 14, and 13 wins. I'll give away the rest of y'all's prediction on them for the regular season. But it's a team that I want to talk about Steve Spagnuolo, who's been around this league, won a Super Bowl with the Giants, his defensive front. I had a lot of questions about this Kansas City defense for the last 2 years, and Steve Spagnuolo has seemingly done a lot with the pieces that he's had, and I love the stability there. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid is just such a big strength when he has a quarterback like Mahomes, where he can pull out any kind of play in any kind of situation and have Mahomes execute that. And then, of course, they upgraded the offensive line, which got beat badly in the Super Bowl last year. It should be better with Orlando Brown Jr. manning the left tackle spot. You have Travis Kelce. You still have Tyreek Hill. Just a really solid group. It's going to win their season. It's going to help them this season. I think the only thing that could derail their season is complacency. When you had that much success, you could see the players sleepwalking through a few games and lose a few games from that. But overall, I don't doubt that an Andy Reid coach team is going to come through. So I have them at 14-3. Now I want to kick it to Dev for this one, and I would like to have you, Dev, talk about both the Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you see in Los Angeles and Las Vegas?
I don't know if you're like me, but I just in my head I want to say Oakland so bad. That's all I remember. Like Oakland or LA.
You can tell I was proud of myself.
I can't get used to Las Vegas at all, but it's interesting. New stadium, right? I think this is going to be a big year for Gruden. I know you know, Jason, we've had the conversations on Twitter about Gruden and is he overrated? I think that can be up for debate, but I do think they were really close last year. We talked about the Jets game that they were able to win, and then I think they fell apart after that, right? So I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback in this league. He's a guy that when he plays with confidence is very difficult to deal with defensively. Their offensive line is going to be a problem, at the beginning of the season. And it's the first game for the Ravens, so I anticipate the Ravens giving them a lot of troubles. But I think they'll figure it out eventually, like throughout the season, because they have some good young talent on that line. Defensively is where I'm interested, right? Because their defensive front has the potential to be very good rushing the passer, especially. They're collecting a number of guys, including Yannick Ngakoue, who went there. And I think that's a good fit for him, scheme-wise, system-wise, better than here in Baltimore. So I think they'll break through this year. I think did I have them going to the playoffs? No, but it's going to be competitive, right? Like they'll be close. And I do think they'll be a better football team. And I like Ruggs a lot. Like I kind of, he's a guy that I think if we're talking about like for fantasy purposes is like somebody I would say like you draft him late and I think he can pay off for you. So I do like their talent. And obviously Waller is amazing, right? So they got some good players, but shifting to the Chargers, I mean, I'm all about it. I think they're getting Derwin James back. They're getting Joey Bosa. I mean, Joey Bosa, I think, missed quite a few games last year. Austin Eckler was nicked up. Like, this team just can't ever stay healthy. We know that. That's like the history of this team, this franchise. But I just love I mean, again, you obviously have to couch it by saying if they stay healthy, but you have to think they'll finally get a break, right, to an extent. And I think they're just poised to talent-wise. I mean, they just line up so well. I think even with Kansas City, like they can match up, especially if Bosa's healthy and James are healthy, who are like the foundational pieces to that defense. Offensively, you still have Keenan Allen. You still have a number of guys. Like I mentioned Eckler, but like I think they're about as balanced a team as there is in the entire AFC, if not the entire league. It's just a matter of I think just again staying healthy and not being a snake bitten as they've shown in these close games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of upside with the
Exactly.
Chargers every year, and I like what you said. One of these years they're going to have some luck. One of these years it just seems like an unlucky organization who fall below expectations, and not that the expectations are through the roof. It just things seem to happen to the Chargers. So Knox, that leaves us with the Denver Broncos. Now I've seen predictions for the Broncos all over the map. I've seen people put them at 5 wins. I've seen people put them as high as 12-13. You have them as an 11-6 team, which would be a great season for them. What do you like about the Denver Broncos, and are you concerned about the quarterback situation?
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation, I'm kind of concerned, but I'm not as much as concerned as I was last year with Drew Lock at the helm. You bring in Teddy Bridgewater, a guy that is mobile, a guy that is proven to win in this league. When he took over for Drew Brees, I think they only lost one game. So I definitely believe in Teddy Bridgewater. Is he, Deshaun Watson? No. Like we both know that. We all can sit here and say no. But he's good enough to win these guys enough games. Along with that, I mean, the defense, these guys are getting I think that they have one of the best defenses in the division, to be completely honest with you. I mean, you got a guy like Bradley Chubb. You got a guy like Von Miller coming back. They drafted Jonathan Cooper. They drafted a guy, both guys, Baron Browning from Ohio State. Both of these guys are just ballers. Like, all these guys can come to play. And then you got Pat Surtain, along with Kyle Fuller. Guys with this secondary. You still got guys like Kareem Jackson still around, Bryce Callahan. They drafted Kerry Vincent. Guys that are just – this secondary is definitely going to give teams problems. And with that, front seven, I definitely see these guys forcing a lot of teams to make mistakes. You look at a team like the Chargers, who are great. I like the Chargers. And I think that they could possibly split with the Broncos. I think the Broncos have been they've been getting ever since Peyton Manning. They kind of been getting beaten up in that division. I would think so. But I think that changes. I really think that changes this year. You got, like we all talk about, these guys got weapons. You got a guy like KJ Hamler that can stretch the field, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. You got, they have a team. And I think the biggest thing with Teddy Bridgewater last time is a lot of people dwell on his last year in Carolina, but he's came out and said, like, they didn't even run 2-minute drills. So that should already give you an estimate of why certain things went that way in Carolina. But I definitely think things are going to change, and they'll definitely get a good season this year.
Yeah, underrated division. I mean, we make cases for all these teams, and it could very well go that way. Of course, it won't because they play each other and things happen. But a lot of talent within this division, a lot to agree with. So with that, we're going to kick it over to the NFC. Start in the NFC East, and Dev is going to kick us off with this one. He has the Dallas Cowboys winning this division at 12-5. Dev, talk to us about these Cowboys.
Yeah, no. Last year was obviously a big disappointment for them, losing Dak Prescott. And I don't think it would have mattered anyway. I mean, they started off pretty poorly. Dak wasn't playing well. So I'm not sure if, they could have pulled out of that if he didn't get hurt. And then they could have, made a run, maybe, because the division was so terrible. But I think talent's never been an issue. It's been not being dysfunctional almost. They shoot themselves in the foot. They make, they don't play up to their expectations from a talent perspective. But I think the key to this team is defense. We know that. Offensively, they get Dak back. Zeke's in better shape, and I think the offensive line looks healthy, right? So everything on paper looks good on offense, but defensively, I like some of the moves they made, honestly. Like the secondary, they added some pieces. I think the system change will be good for them, going to more of I think it's a cover three, right, guys? You can keep me honest on that. I think Dan Quinn is coming in with cover three and installing that, coming from the Seattle days and Atlanta days. I know his Atlanta days aren't as I don't think they're as successful, but I think to look at the speed of that defense, and I think that Parsons was a huge pick for them, so I like that, and I think they'll play well enough defensively. I don't think they have to go from being bottom barrel to top 10. I think if they're in the 15 to 20 range, maybe not even 15, like 20th, I think that's enough, because their offense will have. This is one of the, I think on paper, is one of the best offenses in the league. If again Zeke is right, and that line is right, so I expect them to do a lot better on that side of the ball, and I do think they'll play a lot better overall.
There we go. Well, I'm not as high on the Cowboys as Dev, but I want to talk about who I have, and Knox, by the way, has winning this division, and that's the Washington football team. It's a team where when I look at matchups, I try to look at who or which unit is the most dominant in that particular game and can control the game. And when I look at the matchups throughout the season and I look at the Washington football team, it's on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I think every team in the league, just about, other than maybe the Browns and a few others, can say, man, we could really use an upgrade somewhere on our offensive line. And that's exactly what the football team takes advantage of with their front four. Love them on the defensive side. I'm not in love with the other teams in the division, so I feel pretty strongly about my Washington football team pick. Ryan Fitzpatrick will be up and down, but those ups and downs are more. The downs are smoothed over by having a good defense, which we saw in Baltimore a lot. You turn the ball over, but your defense comes up big for you. That kind of thing. So I see that happening a lot with the Washington football team this year. I have them at 11-6. And I think that's going to be good enough to win the division. So I'm going to kick it to Knox here to talk about the other two teams in that division that we haven't mentioned. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Knox has at 8-9, and he also has the New York Giants at 6-11. So Eagles and Giants. Go ahead, Knox.
Yeah, I think the Eagles. I mean, it's been a whirlwind for these guys, right? So you bring in a guy like Joe Flacco. You still have Jalen Hurts. said he was the QB1, but now he's not. It's just been a mystery there. But I mean, around him, you got Devonta Smith, you got Jalen Reagor. I mean, the offense is promising. You still got Miles Sanders, and you're building around that. So, but the biggest thing for the Eagles is that offensive line. You've seen Jason Peters go down last year. I mean, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Unfortunately, Lane Johnson, was got injured as well. I think he tore ACL, if I'm not mistaken. And then, I think Jason Kels was like the only healthy guy of that veteran group that was on that group last year. So that also definitely puts a lot of things in doubt. I do like the additions that they did make on defense. I think that you definitely go out and they made sure that when you look at Brandon Graham and you just look at that veteran front, I mean, you bring in a guy like Ryan Kerrigan as well, who's, I mean, is he going to have a 10-sack year? I don't know. I don't think so, but he's definitely a sufficient player and, plug and play, in my opinion. So I definitely think that they can win some games. They can also lose some games. I mean, it's a toss-up. This team has to find their identity with their new coach as well. So you're also dealing with those first-year head coaches. Like Dev pointed out previously, it can go either way. You can win some and you can lose some. So I definitely, I mean, 8-9 is pretty fair to say, in my opinion. Now, as far as like the Giants, I don't know here. I mean, as far as building up the offensive line, I thought that would have been the number one priority, and said now it's after cut down day, and now they're trading for everybody. Billy Price and Ben Bredeson, which I like Ben Bredeson. I think that he would be sufficient in there, but it seems like Andrew Thomas still hasn't got the message there. I mean, that was one of their highest picks a year ago, and he just hasn't produced the way that they want to. I think he gave up about like 8 sacks last year. So I mean, it's hard to command a rookie to come in and be like Tristan Wirfs, who played good for the Bucks, but I don't see it there. And then you look around. I mean, all these guys are injured, constantly injured. Evan Ingram, I mean, I think he got injured Sunday. Darius Slayton, he went down, and he's not the most, he's durable. He's probably the most durable out of that wide receiver group, and he went down. And you got Sterling Shepard, who he's cut concussion away, So I mean, and then you bring in a guy like Kenny Galladay. You pay him all this money, and you pray, you cross your fingers that he can stay healthy. So I think it might come down to Darius Slayton and Kadarius Toney, who they drafted a first-round pick on, which is still like mind-boggling to me. But hey, you got a healthy Saquon. So they could put together, like I said, 6 wins. I still think that's fair. I like their defense. I think their defense was a top 10 defense as well. So you got a guy like Adoree Jackson, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan. So they have a nice veteran leadership. Jabril Peppers, of course, Xavier McKinney. Hopefully he comes back and he's be healthy. So we'll see, man. We'll see. That's pretty much my prediction on those two teams.
So, Dev, you're up in New York, aren't you?
That is correct.
What's the word up there? I mean, you and I aren't quite as high as Knox on the Giants.
Yeah, it's not very good over here. They act like they don't even have teams sometimes, and I don't believe them. Like, if they have Sundays during the football season, it's like, whatever. It doesn't matter one way or the other, right? I think with the Giants, there was some optimism, of course, at the end of last year because they were kind of in the mix. I agree with Knox, though. I mean, it's just it's the same thing over and over again. Like, it almost seems like they build their team the same way, and I just am confused at a team that puts so much emphasis on their receiving core and did nothing for their offensive line at all. I mean, Saquon. I think Saquon is gonna be okay. But I don't believe in Daniel Jones either. So I just think the offense has got the makings of absolute disaster. And I don't think there's a whole lot of optimism for the Giants at all. I think especially the coaching staff and with what's going on, right, with Judge, right? So Judge is already under fire, and that's the constant. That's the constant in New York.
Yeah,
whoever's the coach here is under fire. So that's the same deal.
Yeah. It's not the easiest
Yeah,
place to
yeah.
play or coach. I don't think it's for everybody. We've seen that over the years in different sports, man. New York will run you out of town. So, Giants fan,
Yeah.
let my man Dev have it, man. Let him have it in the comments. Let him know why you guys think the Giants would be better than we think. But yeah,
I mean, they,
I had to go off script there and get it from a New Yorker himself. There. So yeah, switching to the NFC North, I'm going to kick us off on this one. I have the Green Bay Packers with 12 wins. I have the Minnesota Vikings with 9 wins. I'm going to talk about both of those teams. I'm actually the lowest on the Green Bay Packers in the regular season out of the 3, but I think they're going to go pretty far in the playoffs. Not a lot to say about this group negatively. I think their questions stem from being able to stop the run. You look at their secondary, it's very good. And then, of course, you have Aaron Rodgers, a motivated Aaron Rodgers, a ticked off, feels disrespected Aaron Rodgers, a man that will find a way to motivate himself and doesn't need any extra motivation with his talent. I love the backfield there with Aaron Jones. I expect a big year from him. A.J. Dillon backing him up. You have Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers in the league. And then when you just look at the quarterback himself, he's going to find a way to get others involved. He's going to find a way to win games. Now, when I look at the Minnesota Vikings, a lot to like about this team. I'm a big Justin Jefferson fan. I think that the way he came on last year, now we know that wide receivers are getting more and more NFL ready with every passing season. When they come out of college, they just seem to hit the ground running more than they used to in the past. I mean, it used to take them, we would look at season 3 as their breakout season. Now they're coming in to contribute right away. But even with that said, the way Justin Jefferson burst on the scene last year is impressive. It's going to be hard for any rookie to duplicate what he did. You still have Adam Thielen there. Tough break on Irv Smith. I expected him to break out a little bit this year. But then you look at the running back, Dalvin Cook. Madison's a nice backup. You have that West Coast scheme out there, the offensive stretch zone that they run so well. So I really love their offense. I think that is going to keep them and win some games for them. And Mike Zimmer is a defensive coach. Their defense struggled last year. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I just expect a regression back up for a Mike Zimmer team to allow them to get back over 500. And I have them at 9-8 this year, which doesn't sound great, but it would be a big step forward. Okay, so we're going to directly transition into Dev's predictions for the NFC North. And the team that stuck out to me was the Chicago Bears. Dev has at 11-6. So, Dev, what do you like about the Bears, and how can they make some noise out there in the NFC?
yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the Bears, they're kind of under the radar. Last year they made the playoffs. Nobody would remember that they did just based on their quarterback shuffle. But I am hedging a bit on this prediction because I do think Justin Fields is ultimately going to end up being the starting quarterback there. And even if he's not, I like Andy. I mean, Andy Dalton, I think, is still serviceable enough with the pieces that they have. I mean, it's a tough division, obviously, and I like Green Bay. I like Minnesota as well. So this is a situation where I just think all 3 teams are going to be very good. But if Fields does take over, this is where I feel like this is where I'm bumping their win total up because I just think it's such a great combination when you look at their run game. Offensive line is a bit questionable. They made some moves that they shuffled some things around, so I don't know how stable they'll be. But I think Fields kind of helps to mask a lot of that with his playmaking ability and his decision making. And you look at the receiving core. I think he's going to have a great relationship with Robinson. On the other side of the ball, we know they can play defense. I also know they're going to do. There's some shuffling around with that unit as well, with some of the veterans that they lost. But I think I just like their overall construction, and then I think it also ties into Justin Fields quite a bit. So that's where I'm at with why I think they'll perform pretty well.
Yeah, that leaves you with the Detroit Lions. Brand new head coach. What is he? He's trying to bite kneecaps off. He's cutting every kicker they have. Give me something on the Lions. Is this a transitional year for them? I mean, all of us have them at either 3 or 4 wins. What can you say about that team in Detroit?
It's going to be tough. I think they're clearly looking to start over. I don't know why with Dan Campbell they're looking to start over. I mean, that's the mystery to me. Like if you're gonna start over, like maybe go for a guy that has got some like you talk about some sort of like not a McVay, but like someone like a McVay, right? Like a young guy that's got some upside. I think it's innovative, but that being the case, I think that there's some good things they got going for them. And their offensive line's got a lot of talent on paper. I think they have that going for them, but I'm scratching for like what they have going for them otherwise. Defensively, there was a time where they had a lot of talent on that defense, and they seemed to like trade it all away. Like Darius Slay, I think was like one of the guys I could think of off the top of my head.
Love Darius Slay.
Recently. Yeah, so they had some players on on those teams, but like I think it's gonna now the Jared Goff experiment where I know they're trying to just again take a step back to take a step forward, and I think that makes sense organizationally because they hit a point with Stafford where they were just okay, right? Like they were kind of like the Ravens were for that stretch between 2015 and 2017 where they were just kind of 9-win team, competitive, trying to make that extra that last playoff spot. But I think this is going to be a hard year for Lions fans to take a step back, and I do like when you look at the running backs and that running game, they have stockpiled some guys. That line is good on paper, so I think they could surprise some people that way. But I think it's going to be there's too many holes on that roster for me to see them be anything other than a lottery team.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, every team goes through that, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. A rough year for Detroit could lead to a lot of turnover, and I loved your point about the head coach there. I mean, why not give an unproven guy his first job in that situation and just let him see what he can do? Hey, let's move it on to the NFC South. A lot of talent in this division. We're going to start with Knox on this one. Him and Dev both have 15 wins, which is a lot of wins, 15-2.
Yeah.
So you're right, lockstep with that. Knox, everybody back from this Tampa Bay team, so I don't think you have to go into a huge description, but go ahead and give me your analysis on them.
I mean, you just said it. I mean, everybody's back. They managed to bring every single person back, which is rare to do. And that shows the unity in this team. And I can only imagine that would translate right over into the regular season. I mean, the same thing with the Titans, like with them, you look at their division and I mean, it's not too many people, they're the clear cut winners. Same thing with Tampa Bay. I mean, I don't see any team really, stopping them from that continued success that they had a year ago. I mean, these guys are Super Bowl champions and they brought everyone back. So that pretty much, sums it up right there. And you got obviously the best quarterback in the game in Tom Brady. So, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine them losing, any more than 2 games. And that would be like, I guess, fluke games or like you would call it, some games that you would all of a sudden this team just plays lights out and Tampa Bay just, like you explained earlier, Jason, the team is sleepwalking and they sleepwalking and they overlook a team and then they just so happen to lose to them. So that's pretty much my assessment on Tampa Bay.
I want to talk about the New Orleans Saints. I'm higher on the Saints than the rest of the panel. I have them at 12 wins, 12-5. I think that Taysom Hill will still be a part of this offense. I don't think that he's going to disappear, and that can only help Jameis Winston when you have those 2 quarterback sets. I love what the Saints have on defense. I love what the Saints have on their offensive line. Yes, do they have a need at wide receiver? Sure. A lot of uncertainty with Michael Thomas there. But overall, you have Sean Payton as your offensive coordinator, head coach. So you have Sean Payton. I think we saw him win 11 games without Drew Brees one year. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize to the fact checkers. But they did pretty well when Drew Brees missed his season. Sean Payton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill is a gadget guy, strong offensive line, strong defense. I'll make a case for the Saints to at least split with the Tampa Bay Bucks when they come to New Orleans. And I love the Saints team. I'm higher on them. I mean, I could even push them up to a 13 wins, but I'm going to leave them at 12 for now. Okay, so moving on, Carolina Panthers. Good young team, young coach, some really nice pieces on defense. I was impressed watching their practices. even though it didn't translate to that preseason game versus our Ravens. I think Carolina fans have a lot to be optimistic about. Quarterback is a question. The Sam Darnold rebirth there in Carolina. Dev, take it away on these Panthers.
Yeah, you outlined some of the reasons for optimism, and I think it's that defense. The front could be one of the best in the league, one of the best up and coming fronts in the league. Burns is a monster. I could see him being upwards of 15 sacks. They've stockpiled a ton of talent. Gross Matos is another guy, and I'm probably missing so many other people on that group, but I think they're at least 8, 9 deep, in terms of the talent there. So I really like where they're. We talked about the Lions, in terms of not having the right priorities. I think the Panthers are prioritizing things the right way. I'm not crazy about Sam Darnold. I think I talked about it earlier, when we talked about the Jets. So that's probably my sticking point with them, is that I'm not confident that, they're going to be able to overcome his mistakes. But that doesn't mean I think that they can't, be, like you said, they've got a lot of talent everywhere else. And if you look at the secondary, you look at that defense, you look at the receiving core, Christian McCaffrey coming back healthy, it's hard not to look at that team. But the offensive line, and Darnold are the two areas that I'm concerned about. But that being said, I think that defense is going to put them in a lot of positions to compete. And in a division where, there's going to be a little bit of, I know Saints definitely, you have to still respect them, and Tampa Bay is a given. But I think there's some room there for the Panthers to kind of be in that mix for the wild card.
Love it. Yeah, offensive line and quarterback can do you in, but they have so many nice pieces everywhere. So I got to kick it to Knox here. Knox, Atlanta Falcons. You have them at 7-10. Another team that's hard to gauge. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about the Falcons.
I think, one of the biggest things that I do like is that, they bring in a guy like Arthur Smith. We know Arthur Smith had success with Derrick Henry. And, Atlanta has had a problem since, I really think since Michael Turner days, with running the ball. I mean, they had Devonta Freeman as well, who served as a good running back as well. He had his seasons. But I definitely like the Arthur Smith move. It's the verdict is, up in the air as far as what he'll be for a head coach. But as far as a positional coach for an offensive coordinator, I do like the move that he made there. Of course, you like Kyle Pitts. You bring in another weapon. Unfortunately, they lose Julio Jones, but you bring in a guy like Kyle Pitts. I do like that. I expect Russell Gage to step up as well. They did, and they brought in Mike Davis, a guy that had 1,000 yards. I think he was a 1,000-yard rusher for the Panthers last year. I think that he'll be a serviceable running back for sure. The defense, you still got Marlon Davison, who I like, who I feel like has some promise, and Grady Jarrett, who's been good as well. AJ Terrell, you would hope that he also makes that jump. I mean, he's been looking better. It looks like he's, gained a little bit more confidence, I feel like, playing in that system. So I think they have, and of course you still have Matt Ryan. I think 7-10, of course, is fair, in my opinion. Everybody else will have their others, but I think 7-10 in that division as well, is fair.
So that transitions us to our final division, which is the NFC West, kicking it off with Knox once again, who loves him some San Francisco 49ers this year. He has them at 14-3. Knox, 49ers.
Yeah, I like the 49ers. I mean, it's like how we all talked about the best play callers in the league when you got Sean Payton and you talk about McVay, and Kyle Shanahan is one of them, and when you got a guy like Kyle Shanahan, I definitely put my trust in, a lot of things that happen. You draft a guy like Trey Lance. Every report that I've seen is, he's been doing good. He's been progressing well, and I think that he's definitely going to make an impact in this offense. You got guys like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel coming back. They drafted one of my favorite running backs that I like personally, Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon was definitely going to be a difference maker behind Raheem Mostert. I think that they're definitely going to be one of the best 1-2 tandems in the league. I mean, you got a guy that's fast and then you got a guy that's, you know, a bruiser. So I definitely, and also, you know, he can catch out of the backfield. So I definitely look at this team. Yeah, I mean, of course, you can't count out George Kittle. You still got Jimmy Garoppolo for now. Well, and of course, when we go over to that defense, we talked about, I think Dev talked about with the Chargers, you know, you're getting Joey Bosa back and you're getting Derwin James back. Well, now they're getting Nick Bosa back. And I think Nick Bosa was a big part of their Robert Saleh defense last year. And, you know, when he went down, you can just see, I mean, the defense just wasn't the same. And you got a guy like Javion Kinlaw, a guy like Eric Armstead. I just expect for these guys to take a big jump here. I mean, it's one of the toughest divisions in football. This is not like a cakewalk by any stretch, but I put my trust in definitely Kyle Shanahan and him to have those guys ready to play, and they're going to scheme up a lot of things where he helps guys at the best of their ability. He puts guys in position to do what they bestly do. So like end around screens, I mean, he'll utilize it all to culminate with some wins.
Yeah, they have the pieces for that. So, Dev, Seattle Seahawks, you know, traditionally strong team. Fun fact, each of us have them at 11 wins this year. Give us your analysis up there, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, you said it. They're so consistent. They're like the Ravens in that sense, right? They have the coaching staff, then Russell Wilson, and it's just a machine. They're always in the mix. I know there's some discontent that they haven't been like necessarily in the NFC Championship games the last few years, or they've lost some playoff games. So that's kind of just a relative by you're almost a creature of your own success. I think in the Seattle fan base is probably, they're probably antsy because they haven't gotten back to the Super Bowl yet, but that's relative to the fact that they've been doing better than a lot of other teams. It's interesting because offensively, with Wilson, you know what you're getting. They can run the ball. You know, Carson, Penny. I think they got Johnson. They got a bunch of guys. The receiving core is dynamic. It's just it's the defense that I think failed them. And also, I know that the coaching staff got shook up. They have a new offensive coordinator. So the question is, were they too predictable last year? I know that was something DK Metcalf alluded to. A lot of like, all right, we're just going to take shots down to Metcalf and then lock it underneath, and that's it. So do they diversify their offense? I think that's why I could see them getting a little bit more traction this year, is if they kind of diversify their offense. They're not as easy to defend. And then on defense, so that's a big blow to their defense. But I think offensively they have enough to kind of overcome that. It's a tough division though, and there's razor thin margins. So I think defensively they have the pieces, but I think the way they've constructed their team, if they lose a couple of these key guys, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's just a gamer. I mean, it just doesn't seem like if it's a shootout, low scoring game, he just he'll make his mistakes like everybody else. But man, I mean, that guy has carved out quite a career. So I want to talk about the Rams and the Cardinals. Now, I'll start with the Cardinals. I have them at 8 wins. You guys had them at 9. I think that's right about right for this team. They're just the worst part about this team is that they're in a really, really tough division, and they got to match up with the other teams that we're speaking about here. Now, I do have some questions about the Cardinals on defense. And on offense, I'm not quite sure if what they're doing, we hear a lot of this in Baltimore with the sustainability, but the Cliff Kingsbury style of spreading out and just having Kyler Murray sling it, I think some of that is a misnomer. Now, they did lose Kenyon Drake, who I thought was a bigger part of their offense. They like to use him on first down, goal line. So sense of direction for this team is why I can't buy all the way in on the Cardinals. However, you look at the Los Angeles Rams, sense of direction has never been a problem for Sean McVay. That offense is set up. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. I have them at 13 wins, a dark horse for the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Maybe not so much a dark horse, but I say dark horse because they're in a tough division. But Matt Stafford brings some question marks, but I don't think there's any question that he's going to be an upgrade from Jared Goff. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. They added Tutu Atwell. They're having problems at running back, but with McVay, I really don't think it makes that much of a difference. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they have star power. So I love the Los Angeles Rams. I have them winning this division, 13 wins. Go ahead, put some money on the Rams if you're looking to make some money this year, and huddle it up, Films' opinion.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They're gonna be a bit popular pick, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think
I
so?
think the Rams is a good pick, man. The Rams is solid. I mean, you got a guy like Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Donald. I mean, one of the best cornerbacks in the game and one of the best DNs in the game. So I really don't think you can go wrong there.
All right, well, we'll see how we pick them in the playoffs and how far we think they're going to go. Okay, so let's move on to the AFC playoff picture. We'll start with Dev. Flash his bracket up on the screen. Dev, talk us through your AFC playoff predictions.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on some of this before when we were running through the teams, but let's start with the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think Kansas City continues to have the momentum. They get the number 1 seed and they get the bye. I like the Ravens to come back and be among the top 3 or 4 seeds. Last year I think they slipped the COVID. I think that COVID stretch hurt them, so I think they'll get back on track and win more games to get up to that level. And then I've got the Titans winning the South, and they're coming in at the 3rd seed, and then the Bills. I know Knox is very high on the Bills. I'm not as high on them, but I still think they'll win the division. They'll get in there. And then I've got the Chargers, the Browns, and the Patriots to round out the slate of the non-division winners, which it's going to be a dogfight. But I think I've talked about how much I love the Chargers this year. And I think the Patriots also sneak into the mix. So I don't really foresee these top teams, there being like a big mix-up at the top. Right? I think the top teams, I think Chalk will pretty much advance because I do think the team. I think the Chargers could be interesting, but I think I don't think the Chiefs and the Ravens will get threatened too much at the top of this group.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So Knox, switching over to yours. Let's put your predictions up on the screen. Give us what you got on the AFC playoffs.
Yeah, I got Baltimore coming in on top. And there's no bias, but there's a saying. I mean, I think Baltimore has, as far as one of depth, they have one of the best teams in the AFC as far as depth wise, and I think that they get over that hump with Kansas City. You have the Bills obviously making their run, showing teams that they can win, and what they should have accomplished last year, they can accomplish this year. Of course, I have the Chiefs. The Chiefs coming in, as always, that's the favorite. I think they'll be the favorite from years to come. Of course, the Browns. The Browns as well. Browns, I mean, they'll make enough noise. I mean, they won their first playoff game last year, so I don't see why it would stop now. You got the Denver Chargers. You got the Chargers coming in. And I think the Chargers, like Dev talked about earlier, I mean, I think that they have a great shot of definitely coming in and making some noise, as well as the Denver Broncos. I have the Denver Broncos coming in and sneaking in. I think that they sneak in with that defense, and they make some noise. But I think in the end, it comes down to Baltimore. And I do have the Chiefs. I have the Browns upsetting the Chiefs. You could have argued last year that, obviously Patrick Mahomes was the reason that they if he'd have played, then of course it would have been a different story, but they still beat him with Chad Henne. So I think they get over that hump there. And I think it's Browns and the Ravens. I think that's more of like a, hot take, but hey, I think the Browns and the Ravens, and the Browns come out on top right there.
Do you like the Browns? Then you like the Browns in the Super Bowl?
I think the Ravens beat the Browns. I think the Ravens. Yeah, I think the Ravens do beat the Browns there, and I just think they come out on top as well.
Okay,
so we have 2 picks for the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Is that correct?
Yeah, I realized that I didn't even say that I have the Ravens going to the Super Bowl. So I like this. I have this narrative in my head that they will overcome their Chiefs hurdle this year, and I just think it'll happen in the playoffs. I could even see them losing to the Chiefs again in the regular season. People saying they're never going to beat them, and then when it counts, it reminds me of the New England situation in that team, that Harbaugh team that had to finally beat the Patriots in New England, and I could see that happening, and I think defensively they will figure out a way to get it done. So yeah, I'm with Knox. I don't think it's a homer pick. I think we're better than that. I think people that label us homers. I think
man, that's the worst.
Yeah, we just have confidence and think they made the necessary moves, and I expect them to overcome some of the struggles they had last year. Like I said, some of those I think with the injuries and also the COVID patch, I think that really hurt them to take that next step.
Okay, well, I am definitely not a homer. Studying film as much as I do, Ravens players drive me nuts sometimes when they repeat the same mistakes. But at the same time, Ravens fans, back off. We cannot have a completely homer show. And I'm pretty superstitious, guys, so I'm not putting the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I'll go ahead and go over my playoff bracket, and I'm going to switch it up here and give a different perspective. So you can see my playoff teams up there, and I have Kansas City with that bye advancing automatically to the divisional round. I have them facing Cleveland. And in the bottom of that bracket, I have the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. I see chalk in that situation. Ravens, KC. KC goes to the Super Bowl for the third straight year. So I'm going to keep my analysis short. Go ahead, Ravens fans, let me have it. Y'all know how much I love the team. But I am a superstitious person, and I'm not going to put the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Go ahead, surprise me, prove me wrong, Ravens. Let's do this thing. Okay, so there you have it. Yeah, Kansas City's going to be a tough out anyway. It's their throne until they're knocked off of it. So we'll see which one of these teams in the AFC is up for the challenge to knock Kansas City off their pedestal. So moving to the NFC, same thing, same order. We'll go with Dev first. Talk us through your NFC playoff bracket.
Yeah, we talked about the Bucs, and I think they're going to run through the league for the most part. The Packers are going to be right there. We talked about the Rams, and then I have the Cowboys winning the division. Not too much of a surprise there. I do think the Vikings. I like the Vikings as well, Jason. So I like their defense is going to be fortified and healthy. And then the Bears, I like if Fields plays. I'm not crazy about them if Dalton plays. So I'm hedging a bit. In the actual mix in terms of the brackets, I have chalk moving on. But the interesting thing is I think the Packers do similarly to the Ravens. I think this is going to be almost like your bridesmaids become the bride kind of scenario, and both teams are going to get over their humps, get over some of their playoff demons. And I like A-Rod and Devontae Adams. I think they've been talking about this whole last dance thing. I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to have their last dance. I think A-Rod has faced enough. I mean, if the guy just had scrambled in that game against the Bucs, they'd be in the Super Bowl. It's crazy, and I think that must have burned him. And I think they move on, and I think they play the Ravens. And honestly, I think they're going to win the whole thing. And I think Rodgers has something to prove, and he could very well be its last year in Green Bay, and that would be very poetic, I think, if he goes out that way. So that's what I have.
Well, Knox, I'm gonna jump in here ahead of you actually because I'm building.
No, dude, take your time, man.
Yeah, man. No, it's the last dance theory. It's the Aaron Rodgers theory. I mentioned it earlier. It would just be so Aaron Rodgers to see him go off and let's say family show, but give a big giant middle finger to the Green Bay Packers organization on his way out. Here's your championship. I'm out of here. Y'all play that rookie next year. See y'all at have fun going 5-12 next year. But
I'm rooting for him.
It just seems like a movie.
Openly rooting for him to do it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, especially the way he had to earn his spot with Favre to kind of, to have that kind of disconnect with your franchise quarterback. So just getting back to my bracket, I have the Los Angeles Rams earning that number 1 seed. I'm highest on them. I have them matching up with the Saints the 5 seed upsetting the Washington football team. Then I have the Battle of the Bays down the bottom, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and this is where I think Green Bay surprises everybody. I have them actually finishing with a better record than Tampa Bay, so I'm going to take Green Bay, LA Rams in the NFC Championship game, and I have those Packers advancing to the Super Bowl to face the Chiefs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Knox. Knox, go ahead and give us your NFC bracket.
Yeah, my NFC bracket, I mean, I start off with Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is just, like Dev said it, and we all said it throughout this whole show, is that they're going to just run through people. I mean, I hate to put it like that. I hate to be, obviously I'm not a Tampa Bay fan. You can clearly see the hat. But it's a simple fact of, like, you got Tampa Bay, as Dev talked about earlier, you get over those demons with the Packers. I feel like they've struggled as well. But I like Tampa Bay. I like the 49ers making it in there for sure. I like Dallas. I like Washington. and I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I to be clear cut with it, I just think that Tampa Bay, they come through and they make it to the Super Bowl. It's just hard. I mean, it's hard to, two-peat or second-peat, but I'm not going to make up this long synopsis of who I think. I just think Tampa Bay just gets back to the Super Bowl, and I think they play the Ravens. I think they play the Ravens, and it's bittersweet because they play them. I think in SoFi. SoFi is the Super Bowl in SoFi this year.
Yeah,
is it in LA?
I think so. I think it's out in California.
Yeah. So that would suck for the Rams, but hey, man, I just think Tampa Bay is just going to run through everybody and just get back in there.
Okay, so Knox, give us your Super Bowl preview then. Who do you have, and who do you have winning it?
I think Ravens and Tampa Bay. I think Ravens and Tampa Bay is a fair adjustment. I mean, Tom Brady, Lamar always talks about how much he admires Tom Brady. So you would love to just see that, and then you would love to see like Lamar also get his ring. I mean, all the stuff that the Ravens been through as well. I mean, we don't want to get personal and stuff like that, but I just think that these are two defensive-minded teams. And when we think about defense, we think about Tampa Bay and what they did last year in the playoffs, and you think about the Ravens and what they made. And I think that those are the best two teams as far as top to bottom as defense is concerned.
All right, now, Knox, we'll take a pick. Who you got? Who you got winning it? Give it to us straight.
Oh, who I got winning it? It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. The Ravens made it that far. You might as I got them winning it. I got the Ravens winning it.
There you go. Sorry, man. Had to nail you down, man. It is a prediction show, but we'll go with that. So, Dev, your Super Bowl, your two teams, who's winning? Give us the synopsis.
I think I like Green Bay and Baltimore, and this is going to be tough, but the Ravens are two for two in Super Bowls, but I do like Green Bay in that game a little bit more. Sometimes it just comes down to momentum or just like some sort of like there's something in the air, just like we've seen in 2012 with the Ravens. They overcame that New England hurdle, and I think the Packers, it was their year last year. Everything was lined up. Give Tampa Bay credit. They went in and they took it from them, but I think they come back and they're hardened mentally, and I think this is their year with Rodgers leading the way.
Okay, so I have Green Bay and Kansas City, and I think if those two teams played tomorrow in a neutral stadium, I would take the Packers in that game, and that's because their four-man rush, starring Zadarius Smith, that's the kind of team that could give Patrick Mahomes problems with the secondary that they have. And then offensively, Green Bay, I don't think will take a backseat to anybody. They have that commitment to run the ball more than you would think. They have their star receiver. It doesn't matter who you match up with him. He's going to get open. He's going to get his 10 targets a game. So my Super Bowl goes back to, I believe, the original Super Bowl, going old school on y'all. Green Bay, Tampa Bay this time, or Green Bay, Kansas City. I have Green Bay winning it. So I wanted to thank you two so much. We covered a lot of ground. Any final thoughts on the NFL season before we wrap up? Dev, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the entire predictions, and David Bakhtiari is going to be on the pup list. So if the Packers, I'm going to make one caveat. Get through that first few games, I still think they'll be in the Super Bowl, but they could be going in like they did in 2009 as a potentially as a wild card. So that's one thing I'll put in there. But overall, I mean, this was a blast, and I think what's going to be cool is that this is a 17-game year, so these records are going to be. You have more margin of error. Three losses, 4 losses, you could still win and be a division winner, if not a top 2 or 3 seed. So just kind of think about that as you're getting ready for the season.
Yeah, I love that compared to college football. I get a lot of pushback from my college football fans, but I'm like, wait a minute, you lose opening day and you're pretty much done, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like your season's over. So yeah, 17 games. Knox, any thoughts on the NFL season?
Yeah, I think this season is going to be exciting. I mean, a lot of teams got better. I mean, you've heard all 3 of us talked about it. A lot of teams did get better, and it's a lot of potential. Hopefully, this COVID thing can go away, during mid-season, and we can all get back to just focusing on football. I think it distracted a lot of people from that last year. Fans weren't really able to enjoy the game fully like they wanted to, and I think this year, a lot of things will be opening back up, as far as starting with football, the best sport. So I'm happy, man. I mean, I love talking with you 2 gentlemen, and it's been a blast, man. I appreciate you for having me on the show. Appreciate you for giving me this opportunity, and thanks, man. I appreciate it, Jason.
Hey, love both of you guys. Football is family. Appreciate fans from other teams who are watching. You're welcome to do your homework on some Ravens stuff. I have something on just about every player. Follow Dev, follow Knox for your news on the Ravens, and they have thoughts on NFL. So just all love to everybody out there. I thank you guys for joining me. Football is family. We'll see you next time. Say goodbye, fellas.
All right.
Take
See
care,
you
everyone.
guys.